The next play that we'll see is The Rapture, a miracle play in 4 acts by James Sherry and Mark Wallace. This is a political verse drama in 4 acts and a brief epilogue with 23 characters portrayed by 6 actors. It's composed in the tradition of medieval mystery, miracle, or morality plays, often depicting biblical tales where the characters embody various moral concepts related to a central ethical quandary. The political dialectic on display also suggests Brecht's didactic and allegorical dramas. In a way, this conceit does relate to the battle for the soul of every man, but the stakes are decidedly contemporary. It's written by James Sherry and Mark Wallace. Mr. Sherry is the author of 13 books of poetry and essays and one of the leading proponents of both language writing and environmental poetics. His books include The Oligarch, Rewriting Machiavelli's The Prince for Our Time, and Entangled Bank. His essay book, Selfie, Poetry and Ecology, is forthcoming from Palgrave in 2021. He's the editor of Roof Books and started the Segway Foundation in 1977 in New York City. Co-author Mark Wallace is the author and editor of more than 15 books and chapbooks of poetry, fiction, and essays. Most recently, he's published a novel, Crab, and a book-length prose poem, Notes from the Center on Public Policy. His current novel, Sir Sleepy of the Bunny Nest, A Saga of the Revolution, is an ongoing serial appearing on a fugitive Tumblr blog. He lives in San Diego, California. That said, now let's enjoy an excerpt from The Rapture.
Act 1, Scene 3. Traders build a derivative around the rapture.
Can I make big bucks? How safe is my equity of this investment? How soon can I cash out? I need to know right now if I'm chosen. I demand assurances.
Investment in Jesus is never wasted. He pays off in this life and the next. Philippians 4:19 says, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Now he's here on earth. I'll help you speak to him directly. The moment he got here, he asked me to set him up with people who need him and who can help him. I've known him my whole life, so be assured there's no Jesus like Jesus.
You actually know him? Ha! Holy derivatives! I want a piece of that Jesus action.
This action will be worthless if he gets himself crucified again. How do we know he's here for good and will guard our investments?
My son, come with me this weekend to the new resort he just opened. Jesus a logo. Golfing, horseback riding, shooting people in the face, the entire arc. And a big pool where Jesus does most of his baptizing these days. Swim with Jesus and you have a clean start. Even the Germans are getting in the pool, and when the Germans get wet, it's time for business. Plus, quality women, Russian women, especially, are ready to go to heaven right away with the right kind of American trader. So, Doubting Thomas, how can I convert you? Jesus is the biggest investment option there is. You don't want in? There are others in the cabana, and you're welcome to stay out of the pool. But if you want in the swim, you better jump quick. Still, maybe you're the kind of believer better suited to the small, safe margin of U.S. treasuries and renovation art projects in Kansas City, Kansas.
Now, hold on there, buddy boy. I'm not saying no. I just want to know the mechanics of this little instrument. I'll buy it, but I need some transparency.
Into the pool. Let Jesus dab a little water on your forehead, and the heart of everything will be revealed. If the tree of knowledge doesn't reassure you, then perhaps your own judgment can't be trusted.
Don't bicker. I can suit you both. Let's write this investment as a credit default swap and insure your bonds against potential loss. We'll sell these swaps to the new governments of Tulsa of Greater Russia. Those guys will buy anything. Let's see. The CEO buys debt in Rapture bonds, say 20 billion, huh? We'll eliminate possible loss from default by the issuer of the bonds, that is Jesus, by selling the credit to Tulsa. That is, Tulsa acts as a collateral to ensure the investor's potential losses as part of the agreement. I fear counterparty risk, but since the minister is sure we'll all be rising up, that'll be no problem.
No, that makes sense.
In Jesus, you will be protected from all loss. Indeed, all losses shall be turned into gains.
Jesus insured Moses' investments. Just sign here, minister, and here.
Act 1, Scene 4. Corporate leaders sell Tulsa to Russia.
Jesus says, go. Sell what you have. Gentlemen, we folks weren't managing our people and property effectively here in Tulsa. Tax income was down 20%, home foreclosures up 8, crime up 10. Democrats want social programs. Too expensive. Republicans lowered taxes on the upper brackets and retail sales fell. But this new opportunity will make our town roar. We should have leased you Tulsa years ago.
Tulsa needs a streamlined economy. Cities can't be responsible for too many poor citizens. And the government, Tulsa, consistently operates at a loss. Today's U.S.-Russia pilot program leases cities for 99 years to our northeastern neighbors. Now, you Russians know how to manage populations. And I'm sure you can reform the city without all those nasty human rights that makes U.S. cities so expensive.
Mr. Mayor, or should I call you Grand Duke of the Greater Tulsa of Russia? I'm so happy you found a vehicle to fit your new title. I'm sure you'll help us run the city, assuring all Tulsa citizens have and know their place. We hear the work camps are up and running, and now unemployment is practically zero.
We here in Tulsa are ready for the new trend. Half corporate state, half work camp. I'm sure we'll be squeezing the best from everyone.
Mr. Mayor, of course. Even the poorest citizens will have clear roles with Tulsa in our hands.
Mr. Mayor, the work camps are full. We need more farmers to feed the workers.
Farmers? Yeah. Here in Oklahoma, we plowed them under in the Dust Bowl. I hear some big farmers are going to the big Jesus rally this weekend down at Jesus Alago. Maybe we can talk to them there?
Yeah, big bash I hear. But I also hear there's going to be a protest.
Jesus saves us from worker complaints, poor people, and most activists. As long as he leaves those lovely loopholes in his morality, we can deal with a few meddlesome lefties.
A few protesters reassure me that I'm doing my job.
Thank you very much. Our next play is by Lonely Christopher, and its title is I Am Happy. Lonely Christopher is the author of the poetry collections Death and Disaster series, The Resignation, and in a January Wood. He also wrote the short story collection, The Mechanics of Homosexual Intercourse, and the novel, There. He is the founding artistic director of Interpoets Theater, and his plays have been presented in Canada, China, and the United States. His film credits include several international shorts and the feature Mom, which he wrote and directed. He works for homeless queer youth and lives in Brooklyn. In this play, Andy Warhol gets ready for the day in his townhouse bathroom as he's berated by an antagonistic interloper. In a play that takes the form of a video collage starring computer programs. Let's visit with Andy Warhol.
Anyway, they say he was never the same after she blew his guts out. Not that he was eminently noble. The surface was meant to replace what was underneath. That was catchy. Most people took it too seriously. They bought it to a point. Being assassinated was too human, doesn't happen to mirrors or machines. There was no room in the appearance for blood and gore. He was an unbalanced equation. If you suppress the inside, it is bound to start leaking inopportunely. Many would assume that's a paradox rather than a sign of integrity. A screen is a white void onto which images may be projected, but it is also a verb of protection and concealment.
Worthless shit.
Oh, good morning to you too.
I don't want to be here.
I tell myself it's perfect.
Would it matter if his drive for meaninglessness and erasure belied an intense physicality? The term body horror was newly minted. Perhaps it's a moot point, since he is long dead. In the disintegration of his bones, he became the symbol to which he pretended in life. But this is a closet drama, a fiction, through which we may travel back in time to a sunny early afternoon on the Upper East Side. Imagine a skinny brick townhouse a block away from Central Park. Now it's worth $35 million. Andy relocated after his mother died. She haunted the basement of their old house. It was spooky. He didn't like to acknowledge the finality of her absence. One day she just wasn't around anymore. If anyone asked where she was, he would respond that she must have gone shopping at Bergdorf's. She was always shopping. That meant he was in denial, because compulsive buying was his way to survive. He knew that, if he stopped purchasing, he would die.
Just look at you.
Not yet, I'm not ready.
Pathetic. How you have to assemble yourself.
Women wear wigs and makeup. I don't know what the big deal is.
Women are trapped in a male-dominated society where they must dress up as ridiculous clowns to appear sexually desirable to their exploiters.
Well, I don't know about that.
Andy sent her body home for the family to put underground. His life felt empty. All the rooms in all his properties were barren. He had to fill them with antique furniture, and cookie jars, and sculptures, and fixtures, decor, and bags of unopened goodies from his latest spree. It didn't matter what it was, just that it was. Indigenous fabrics were a favorite, and beads, and wallpaper samples, candelabra, and silverware. Emaciated in form, he was still a glutton, worse than a collector. A hoarder. He wanted to crowd himself in, drown out the vacuity with mass. There was little design to it. It was impulsive, almost scary. Andy would buy diamonds by the handful, and keep them in his coat pockets to secretly fondle.
Decadent swine.
All you do is call people names.
You have no idea. You can't see me. You can barely see yourself.
I'm looking right at it.
A mirror is violent.
But I have such a great one. I mean, I could spend all day right here. I think mirrors are like Valentines.
It's time for surgery.
The way that his mother used to fill the basement with her presence, he wanted a lover to be there in the space with him. His mother used to pester him, asking when would he settle down with a nice girl. He needed a wife. He told her he wasn't ready. But when she was gone, he was ready, because he hated being lonely. There were problems that made it difficult to attract a mate. His wealth and fame didn't counteract the repulsion most people felt for him. In their minds, he was a sickly specimen, a pale homunculus. Even the men who had been with him vehemently denied it to their last breath. His life was far from sexless, but this was rarely acknowledged. He had a fumbling, fragile demeanor in bed, like an adolescent without any experience or confidence. That's how he got his reputation for being a wire, because it was easier just to watch.
Are you ever afraid of what you see in there, like a stranger looking back at you?
I used to like strangers, but not since the accident.
It wasn't an accident.
It wasn't my fault.
Everything wrong in my life is your fault.
Certain things are random, beyond our control. Mistakes. We all make mistakes. That's why we go to church and confess our sins.
I can't believe you're religious.
Byzantine Catholic.
You're a cocksucker.
I'm an actor. I just did an episode of The Love Boat.
Who did you play?
Myself, of course.
It was hard to keep a boyfriend. There was the kid, but that fell apart. The kid was dewy and ambitious. His energy complemented Andy's lassitude. Everything was possible. The kid needed something to do. He wanted to learn, wanted a teacher. When Andy unzipped his jeans and presented his swollen member to the kid, there weren't fireworks, but the kid didn't cry and run out of the room. They kissed awkwardly and rubbed against each other. The kid folded him into the four-poster bed and fucked him. Andy couldn't come unless he was alone, looking at pictures. The kid sometimes didn't know what was happening. He didn't have any ideas, so he became a decorator. Andy let the kid redesign his offices. Then he let the kid redesign the townhouse and move in. The kid wanted his own bedroom. Andy didn't like that, but the kid insisted. When Andy was young, his whole family slept on the same lumpy mattress. The kid said Andy was too bony to sleep with, unless he wanted to get jabbed by sharp elbows all night. The kid pouted, grew despondent. Even at a distance, it was enough for Andy. But not for the kid. The kid left. Eventually he died in a plane crash. He went shopping at Bergdorf's.
You're an isolated unit, trapped inside yourself. Totally egocentric, incapable of empathy or love. Just a machine.
Thank you.
That's not a compliment.
But I want to be a machine. Or the Empire State Building.
A phallic monument full of dentists' offices.
I don't need love. Just a good secretary and a diary of my daily expenses for tax purposes. Plus a bowl of soup with a glass of Coke. That's more genuine than love.
Andy was alone again. There was a closeted film executive at Paramount he had a crush on. He would send the guy bushels of roses at work, which would mortify him. They only fucked after arguments. Andy was terrified of disease. There was a virus going around killing gay men. Andy had to do a lot of coke and drink half a bottle of wine to get his mind off it, but then he couldn't get it up. He wanted the executive to be faithful. They could move to his beach house and watch the world burn from the shore. But the executive was slippery, dissatisfied. He was always running off to wild parties. Andy was so nervous. The executive got sick. He couldn't bear to visit him in the hospital. He avoided anyone who might tell him what was happening. Andy had nightmares about waking up and looking in the mirror, finding his face patterned with red blotches. At first, he thought they were the same splotchy rashes that he dealt with forever, until he realized they were lesions.
You know how I know the world is doomed? Because you're in it, rich and famous.
I work very hard.
You boss people around, use them, turn them into products.
I run a business. I make money.
But you don't know why. You have no idea what drives you. Incapable of purpose, you drown in delusion and false friends.
I used to think everyone was my friend. I was wrong.
Is it lonely at the top?
Not with you here to keep me company.
We are witnessing Andy in a private state. He wakes up alone in his bedroom, but he's not by himself. She blends in with the shadows. She slinks into the ensuite bathroom when he blinks. Groggily, without his glasses on, he follows. Andy struggles out of his pink girdle, and then takes off his underwear. He is at his most vulnerable when he hops into the shower. This is the only time during his life when he is completely naked. His stomach distends in a scarred mass around his waist. He hums Whistle while you work from Snow White as he washes himself. Now Andy is toweled off and looking at himself in the bathroom's huge rococo mirror. His back to the audience who can see his face and torso reflected. His dark fringe frames his marbled face, bulbous nose popped and blushing. He cringes at the sight of himself and gets to work. The counter is crowded with beauty products, toiletries, and accessories. His interloper is sitting on the toilet nearby, facing the audience, peeing.
You want to be a symbol because that's powerful. But I see right through you. Underneath you're just a weak and trembling man like all the others.
I can't face the world until I'm put together.
Nobody would recognize you without your wig. Nobody would pay you without your shtick. It's easy to flatten yourself out, isn't it? but it's not real.
The truth is how much I profoundly care for people, for the world. It's better not to care, but I can't help it. It's a mistake.
Bullshit.
You're just so cynical. Really negative energy. I could give you some crystals.
The only thing I want from you is what you can't give.
Money.
Your life.
Andy wipes cream on his ruddy cheeks and then rubs it off with a towel. He starts applying glue to his bald pate with a brush. He grabs a hairpiece and places it on his head, making arrangements. His interloper flushes the toilet, wipes herself cursorily, then stands up, puts the toilet cover down, and sits again. She snorts and swallows the mucus. She looks dirty and deranged, hair frizzing out at all angles under a floppy cap. Coat too warm for the weather, several sizes too big. Sweaty and agitated. Not somebody he would welcome into his home by choice. But one day he arrived back from the office to find her making a peanut butter sandwich in the kitchen. He's afraid to call the cops. If she feels threatened, she might do something terrible. Andy wants to stick to the routine. He applies foundation evenly over his bumpy cheeks, and then dabs concealer under his eyes. When he is satisfied, he takes his vitamins with a big glass of water. He straps himself into his medical corset and then sprays himself with perfume. Then he starts getting dressed.
Did you think I was just going to disappear?
We asked the judge to keep you in prison.
Nobody wants me, not even the jailers. I roamed the streets. Some poets took me in. But after a while even they rejected me. These behaviors are the conditioned reflexes of mindless drudges. Everything is predetermined against free thought. The most violent retribution awaits those who speak truth to power.
We said you were a danger to yourself and others. Nobody listened.
I gave you something nobody else could, an epiphany. You're too much of a coward to appreciate it. How did you repay me? You took my freedom just like you stole my ideas. You're a miserable rodent.
No, I am happy. I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
The male loves death. He wants to die. I'd be doing everyone a favor. The mayor would give me the key to the city. But then again, I'm crazy. Disgusting animal. You forgot to brush your teeth.
I'm ready.
When he went in for his final operation, he insisted on wearing his wig. There were complications. Andy hazily wondered if it might be a good time to go shopping at Bergdorf's. She wanted him in his last moments to be fascinated by her own pain. She needed him to finally understand. The night he died, she fell into a trance on the floor of her lousy room, foaming at the mouth. But she couldn't reach him. Andy didn't think about her at all. He was preoccupied with a sudden memory from childhood. He was walking down a dirt road to the grocer to fetch a bottle of milk for his mother. A burly man leaned out of a door and called to him. Andy thought the man looked like Stromboli from the movie Pinocchio. He asked Andy what he was doing. The boy said he was on his way to buy food. The man told Andy that he had a nice big, fat sausage right here that the boy could feast on. Andy blinked innocently before following the man into his house for a new treat. Valerie died alone, like everybody does. She didn't go to Bergdorf's, she just got sick and choked on her own spew. She was survived by her mother, who burned all her brilliant writings. The last thing Andy thought about before his brain stopped working was what that man said to him as a boy, when Andy was swallowing his cum. "You get what you give," he moaned. It was something Andy often heard his mother repeat when her children were acting petulant, a generic turn of phrase that only meant so much because of what was happening when Andy heard it from the mouth of a dirty old pervert. The end.
In these festivals, these 22 festivals now and 29 years of bookings, I don't like to have curators book themselves, but Bill Considine is a killer Poets Theater curator and a wonderful playwright, and he would have no opportunities to be in our Poets Theater otherwise, so this is an exception to my rule that I'm more than happy to make. Here with the President's Day address for 2021, it's Bill Considine.
Thank you, David. Friends and fellow citizens, happy President's Day. And it is a happy day because a good man is our president, President Joseph Biden. And it is still a terrible day due to the actions of the previous president, up to and including inciting murderous insurrection. This day used to be called Washington's birthday, and it's been a federal holiday for a long time. It's a tradition that in honor of President Washington and the decisive step he made in leaving office voluntarily at the end of his term, that each year on this day, a U.S. Senator reads aloud in the Senate Washington's farewell address from 1796. In that address, President Washington warned about the dangers to the nation from foreign influence and the, quote, baneful effects of the spirit of party, unquote. We've endured both those ills over the past few years and especially the past few months. The mysterious and complete subservience of the former president to a foreign nation is exactly what Washington warned of. And certain factional party allegiances have become, as he warned, a path to potential absolute power of an individual, to the ruin of public liberty. A circumstance we only narrowly escaped a few weeks ago. A danger that has not been dispelled, thanks to certain party passions bred, as Washington said, in the love of power and proneness to abuse it, in, quote, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men, unquote, who support a would-be tyrant. Just a few months ago, I wrote a little ditty. As if creation lives in a better place, above politics of crime, lies, and greed, I resent having to vent in verse my outrage at the disgrace that overwhelms our newsfeed. But here we are. Today I recall my first oration. Sophomore year of high school, I took speech, a class taught, led by Miss Malseed in a room with a stage called the Odeon. Sophomore boys, yes, only boys, near year end, could give a memorized oration to the Optimist Club, a small fellowship group of businessmen, after dinner in a room in a restaurant. I chose democracy as my theme. From the encyclopedia my parents bought from a door-to-door salesman, I chose Solon, the lawgiver of Athens, and Hiawatha, sage of the Iroquois nation, as independent founders of democracies. The logic of my argument from two men out of all history now eludes me. Feedback from the oration was that perhaps Solon was remote and did not engage the men's interest. From this, I learned nothing. Worked over many years on a verse play about Solon, his mad poet act, and ancient women's mysteries, while democracy shattered in lies. Hiawatha's been done, but in name only, a stolen name, not the real man. But who knows? I might still have time for a new draft. This next time, an oration of epic ethnic appropriation. Recently, I turned to the words of one of the wisest men in our literature for guidance. I speak, of course, of the fool in King Lear. Here's what he said about what our politics has become as a fool speaks to power. If you want real power, Nuncle, bring back crime. Start by claiming there's a terrible crime wave, whatever. Make poor migrants criminals in hiding, unable to turn to the police. Make up new crimes and force the obsolete. Marijuana, Nuncle, such a haze, so fraught for paranoia. Lock them up. To be king, you must have prisoners. Disrupt whole communities, charge and ruin them one by one. A huge population in private prisons. Did you know you can own a prison in America? I heard last night of a guy who owns a chain of women's prisons. They can work for $1 a day, pure profit on prison labor, exempt from the Constitution's ban on slavery. They're off the streets and cannot vote. Their communities are yours, reduced. That will keep them weak enough to be subjects of a bitter fool, Nuncle, a mean and mighty king of mere losers. Make a lot of them. Make them your base, a plinth for the statue of one superstar. They can build it and pay you with their lives. That advice from the fool got me angry. And I remembered the older crimes of our bloated demagogue, our would-be tyrant. But let's be fair. There is no evidence linking Trump to the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963. However, Trump was 17 years old and a troublesome young man already, sent away to full-time detention hall, a, quote, military, unquote, school, where he majored in dress-up, strut, parade, and bully. Records have not surfaced as to his whereabouts that day in Dealey Plaza, but the conspirators were never caught. And don't you think that Hoffa and the Mafia sound like Trump's kind of people? He was underage. But would that keep him out of Jack Ruby's strip club? He would grow to know so many crime bosses and oligarchs. What did Trump ever know? And when did he forget all about it? His role then? Probably to blame foreigners. But instead, he preened for hours at his reflection in store window glass over a TV screen. And his part of the plan failed, of course. The evidence so far? Trump accused an opponent's father of involvement in the Kennedy assassination. Isn't it clear? Trump accuses others of what he does, a trick learned from his favorite old lawyer, the disbarred one. Still, it's only conjecture, but he has been linked to many crimes, the latest committed in full view of all of us, and gotten away with it again, so far. I was reminded of the famous words of Emma Lazarus about the Statue of Liberty, and I borrowed a few of her words that helped me still breathe free. Not a colossus. Under circling skies, oceanside land cracks open like a watershed door, inward, for a refugee's urgent hand, to natural harbor, a home to breathe free. Liberty still holds up high a flame of green copper oxides. A few poor, tattered, skeletal piers remain to frame airy memories of a welcoming shore. An orange obesity of fraudulent fame now struts and shouts to loom larger than she who calmly still carries liberty's name. The awful clown stretches to pretend to stand tall, shakes his fists and rants at you and me. But down he shrinks with every cruel command. And shrink he has. So may I suggest a transition to a better future in our song. Memories of the day's outrages cut sharply as we fade into sleep. What we leave behind still happened. We can't escape a world so strange. We sing like a rebel army marching through a village to sirens and applause. I grind my teeth, you stir and toss. We murder our fathers with loud guitars. We awaken to what's been lost and clamor in darkness for a past before the fascists came, reclaimed. Please strum your banjo. I'll string a fiddle. Our tune evolves, a tender call together to start a day again in the right key. Here's to optimists and our new and so much better president, Joseph Biden, on this President's Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was wonderful.